I'm done pretending Stasis Titan isn't fun. And lucky for us, this season is also really good. So let me show you how to take full advantage of your icy powers while also having the ability to wreak havoc. Alrighty, hear me out. I'm gonna blow your mind. We're gonna do a Stasis build that doesn't use Hoarfrost Z or Camden's Ridge Lance Cap. Does that scare you? Do you fear the unknown? Are you worried that without one of these workhorse exotics, this build will suck? Well, if you're worried, don't be. Because we're going back to a good old-fashioned crush that Titans have literally been using for years. And that's Heart of Inmost Light. I'm gonna be honest, I really haven't used Hoyle much since after its nerf, and that's because I've been enjoying other exotics. But it really is the perfect exotic for this build. It allows us to hyper-focus on getting our ice abilities back as soon as possible. So let's take a look at this build in a little more depth, and we're going to start with the subclass. Our abilities are set in stone, or ice. For barrier, we're going to go with Baby Barricade, because we want to throw these down as often as possible to trigger Heart of Immense Light, but feel free to go with the big one if you want to be safe. For grenade, we're going to go with the Glacier Grenade. Look, I know this build is focused on short cooldowns, and this is the longest cooldown of all 3 grenades, but Duskfield is for hunters, and Cold Snap is for warlocks, and that's just Titan math. Then for our charged melee, we have a really tough choice between Shiver Strike and nothing, because Bungie decided one melee was plenty, I guess. Anyways, let's take a look at our aspects. First, we have Tectonic Harvest, which allows us to shatter a stasis crystal to create a stasis shard, and these stasis shards grant melee energy when picked up. Then we have Diamond Lance, which creates a lance every time you shatter a frozen target, which then can be thrown or slammed to freeze enemies, causing a stasis explosion. Look, I know it can be a little weird since we aren't using the lance cap, but because of how Heart of Immense Light interacts with stasis, these ice javelins are technically grenades when used, so that it'll trigger the rapid regen on our barricade and our melee with every single throw. And to finish off our subclass, we have our fragments. We're going to go with Whisper of Shards, so that shattering a stasis crystal grants a temporary boost to your grenade recharge rate. Next we have Whisper of Conduction, which will allow stasis shards to track to us within 15 meters. Following that, we have Whisper of Chains, which gives us 40% damage resistance whenever we stand beside a frozen enemy or crystal. Fourthly, we have Whisper of Rending, so that our primary ammo weapons deal 100% increased damage against stasis crystals and 50% increased damage against frozen enemies. And finally, our last fragment is Whisper of Torment, which grants us grenade energy when we take damage from enemies. Man, that is a lot of fragments and a whole lot of words. But now that we've gone over the entire subclass, I'm sure you can see where this build is going. But let's go ahead and talk about the armor mods really quick. On our helmet, the only necessary mod is a Siphon mod for orb generations, but help yourself to a hands on for faster supers. On our arms, we're going to go with heavy-handed and impact deduction. And then we also have a melee kickstart that will allow us to get a big bulk of our energy back after using it. And here I would have said grenade kickstart, but the ice lances like to use up those armor charges because they count as grenade and it'll just play out better with the melee one. On our testicle, we have 2 charged up mods, which allow us to have more armor charges for our kickstart mod to work even better. And now for the toes. I went with recuperation and innervation, so our orbs of power can give us that sweet ability energy with a bit of health, and then we have an elemental charge, so our stasis shards give us even more armor charges for that melee kickstart. Lastly, we have our class mod, which we're going to go with outreach and bomber for even faster abilities, and then reaper so we can get an extra orb every so often. Sweet! That's all of our armor mods. So now let's cover something much more fun, our weapons. And here's where we get the fire from for our build. You get to use nearly any solar weapon because they are so disgustingly good this season because of the seasonal artifact, which we're going to cover shortly. So ideally, you're going to want something like Sunshot or Polaris Lance to get you some guaranteed scorch. But every single solar weapon is going to demolish here, especially something like a Callus Mini Tool with Incandescent or a BXR with Demolitionist for that grenade energy. And in all honesty, just keep your eye out for any solar weapon with Demo or Incandescent, and you're going to be absolutely golden. This combo of fire and ice together will be everything Fire and Water Girl wish they could have been. Oh, and the seasonal artifact must-haves for this build are as follows. Hail the Storm, which makes it so shattering stasis crystals releases shards of ice that damage and slow targets. Pillar of Ice, so that defeating a frozen target spawns a stasis crystal. Flint Striker, to become radiant by landing precision shots. Ray of Precision, so while radiant, solar precision final blows cause targets to ignite. Torch, so while you're radiant, you deal increased damage to enemies affected by stasis. And lastly, Kindling Trigger, so while radiant, your solar weapons apply more scorch to unscorched enemies. And that's everything. This build is going to provide so much more than you will ever need. It has crowd control, survivability, constant ability regen, and so many explosions. please do me a favor and take this for a run in the coil and let me know what you think about it. Just make sure you're using every single ability on cooldown. See ya!